What's going on, everyone? Ronan here, and welcome back to the channel. So you're going to be asking yourselves, what are we doing here exactly today? Well, about a month ago, I relaunched one of my earlier endeavors on the channel known as the What If Will. And there was one episode that came out of it that I particularly thought had potential, and that was what if Brock took the gym challenge. So I re-uploaded it with some music and some of my new editing tactics just to show that that part was on the channel, even though most of you may not have seen it. But I've decided that because it had such great potential, that I wanted to turn it into a full story series for you guys. So that's what we're going to be exploring over the next couple of weeks for the new What If on the channel. So today is going to be the first official part 1 of what if Brock took the gym challenge, considering the last part was just part of the What If Will. But before we get into that, I'm going to need you guys to do the usual thing. Take a look at this analytical stat bar, don't forget to drop a like and hit the notification bell and the subscribe button, and also put a comment on the video just to say anything that you liked or disliked about it. But with all that being said, let's get into part 1 of what if Brock took the gym challenge. I hope you enjoy. We begin today's part with Brock as he is in the midst of a battle with his father. You see, he has agreed to the sponsorship of his deadbeat dad because he wants a chance to become a strong trainer so he can uphold the memory of his mother. But there was a couple of things he had to go through first. There was an evaluator sent from the school to make sure Brock met all the qualifications. So he is currently 10 years old, and he also has a starter Pokemon, something that doesn't really have any type of experience. And even though Flint was a questionable sponsor, his status as a gym leader made it so that way he was able to sponsor his own son, getting Brock into the school just barely by the skin of his teeth. However, the start date of the school was one that was peculiar because it was 6 months from his orientation inspection, and Brock was forced to wait the entire time. However, they didn't say that he couldn't battle, so whenever his dad wasn't busy with his brothers and sisters or having a challenger for the gym, Brock insisted that they did whatever they could to practice whenever they could so that way he'd be as strong as he could possibly be whenever he made it to the school. So that's where we find ourselves currently today, as Brock and his partner Roly-Coly stare down both Flint and Rhydon. However, there's something that our young protagonist hasn't really gotten the hold of yet, and that's his starter Pokemon. You see, Brock isn't really fond of the rock typing, and because of that, it's taken him a little bit of time to get to warm up to his starter, and this isn't reflected by how Roly-Coly treats its trainer, in the way of making any interaction the two share as difficult as possible, and that includes Pokemon battles, because Roly-Coly is still fairly young, just like Brock. They both share one thing in common, and that's being stubborn and pig-headed, because, you know, they're both basically kids. This has led to many of the battles that Flint and Brock try to have end with Brock's frustration with his rock type, as sometimes it doesn't really want to listen to him, or it's not as responsive to him when he's given it an order, resulting in the coal cart getting hurt in the process when facing off against his dad's higher level Pokemon. And this in turn just causes more animosity between the two as they spend their days trying to get in unison. Unfortunately, it's the same pattern over and over again. Brock gives Roly-Coly a command, and it may try to obey it, but then it gets caught in the crossfire of a powerful attack, which leads the rock type to getting angry at Brock, and then it chooses not to listen to it for the rest of the day. And then the two just do nothing but butt heads until the day is time to end, and they're forced to go to sleep. It's even gotten to the point that Flint is starting to second guess his choice for his Pokemon that he gave Brock, telling his son that if he wants, he could try and find him something more manageable, something that wouldn't be as hard for him to work with. Maybe even getting him a water type like his mom used to use. However, Brock is as stubborn as his father, telling Flint this is his Pokemon now, and whether he likes it or not, he's not going to give up on it. So they're stuck together, regardless of whatever is happening between the two. Though his son hasn't made the progress that he was hoping he would, Flint knows just by Brock making that statement alone means the young boy is going to be ready for whatever challenges he may face in the future. And after months of waiting, today is the day when his future has arrived, as the summons letter that they've been waiting for from the Pokemon Institute has finally arrived via Dodrio mail. Brock has 1 week to get his things in order, because if he's not present on the first day, then they will count that as a forfeit of his position at the Institute, and he will be forced to return to the gym. Reading this forces Brock to start to panic, as he's not quite sure what he needs to take. However, Flint is able to calm his son down ever so briefly, so that way he can explain exactly what's going to happen. Brock is going to have to finally leave the gym on his own. He's going to have to make the trek to the Pokemon Institute, which if the gym leader's memory serves him correctly, it's gonna be a 4-day walk if Brock moves at a brisk pace. It's at that moment that the reality of the situation sets in. Brock is actually going to be alone. He won't have his parents to fall back on. Even his deadbeat dad, even though he doesn't have the greatest of love for him, has still been a reliable figure in the household ever since he returned. And now Brock has to do things for himself. This kind of scares the young boy, but he's as pig-headed as his father, and he refuses to accept this laying down. So Brock puts on a brave face, telling Flint that there's nothing that's going to keep him from entering the Pokemon Institute, and he's going to immediately start packing. Brock then runs off, leaving Flint to ponder his own thoughts on the situation. That night after dinner and all the kids are down, Brock is alone in his room, and he is packing everything that he would need into the new backpack that his father had bought him. It's here the young boy begins to talk with his starter Pokemon. Roly-Coly, tomorrow is the start of our actual adventure. I know that we haven't seen eye to eye in the last couple of months, and we're not where exactly I wanted us to be, but I need you on this. You're gonna be my partner, and we're stuck together whether we like it or not. So let's do our best to make sure that we make Mom proud. The wheelie boulder does what it can to signify that it's on board with Brock, even though they don't exactly see eye to eye at the current time. The following morning is the time that Brock decided to leave. At the front of the gym stands Brock with Roly-Coly, his father, and Rhydon. The young boy is telling Flint not to let the gym fall apart while he's away. He'll be back soon for break, and he expects this place to be in tip-top shape, and his father had better turn it into the best gym in Kanto. If he doesn't, then he's going to have to answer to Brock, because he's going to be much stronger. Flint puts on a brave face, smiling, telling his son that's exactly what he plans to do. Brock then turns without saying a goodbye to his father, or even waving, simply walking down the path leading away from the gym. As Flint watches his oldest son disappear out of sight, he can't help but well up with tears in his eyes, because even though his son is still mad at him, this is one of the proudest and saddest moments of his adult life. Over with Brock, the only thing he can think about is getting to the Institute. While he is on speaking terms with his father, he still hasn't forgiven him for being away so long, so that's caused the boy to keep his father at a distance to prevent Brock from getting hurt again. The next week is full of adventure for our young hero, as Brock left a day earlier just in case he got sidetracked a little bit, and oh boy did he, as when he went into Mount Moon, he ended up getting lost and spent some time being chased around by Zubat before finally finding his way out and making his way to Cerulean City. Unfortunately though, his bad luck didn't really end there, because when he heard that there was a gym in town, he thought since he had Roly-Coly, he would challenge them to see if they were as strong as they claimed they were. Unfortunately for our young rock-type trainer, his starter couldn't really hold a weight to the three sisters as their water-type specialists, and Roly-Coly was knocked out in one move, forcing the boy to lick his wounds back at the Pokemon Center. Then, after choosing to move on from Cerulean, Brock ended up getting lost just south of the city in the woods, ending up in a village to where he ended up clashing with some Pokemon, especially one of the starters of the Kanto region, a Bulbasaur, that didn't take too kindly to the boy being there and was easily able to one-shot Roly-Coly and Brock, sending them on their way before the human that cares for the village got back from town. And as if his luck wasn't bad enough, then Brock finds himself in a small town where a sly little Squirtle is making his way through the town, stealing things and causing as much mayhem as possible. Turns out that it was abandoned by a trainer, and Brock falls victim to its shenanigans when his backpack goes missing and all of his supplies as far as food and healing items for Roly-Coly come up gone. By the time Brock finally reaches the Pokemon Institute for registration day, he looks like he's been trekking through the wilderness for eons. He's very disheveled, clothes a little bit torn, backpack empty, and he's got a couple of sticks and branches in his hair. And don't forget how dirty his face is. But this isn't going to stop our young hero, as he's made it on the day that he was supposed to. So he stiffens up, excited for the chance to finally make himself known and show the world that he can be the greatest trainer. Emerging from the forest, Brock walks straight up the registration desk, bypassing the entire line to announce that his name is Brock, son of the pewter gym leader, and he is here to register for the Pokemon Institute. However, the lady that's in charge of registration merely looks at him over her glasses, telling him that he needs to go to the back of the line. She'll help him when it's his turn. Oh, I don't think you understood me. I'm Brock from Pewter City. I was invited to be here. You see, I even got the paper and everything. However, the lady in charge of registration merely points, saying, so did all of them, as Brock turns around to see a massive line with people waiting one by one to be seen by the leader of the registration counter. Brock is a bit taken aback by this, as he didn't expect to have to wait so long to get registered, and hangs his head due to the ignorance of the situation. With nothing else to do, the severely disheveled boy begins to slouch, shuffling his way to the back of the line. However, one thing does not go unnoticed by Brock, as there's a group of girls that seem to find his predicament funny, as they are giggling off to the side, like Brock is an oddity. However, the young boy pays no mind to this, simply traversing his way to the back of the line so that way he can get this embarrassing registration moment over with. Brock finally finds himself at the back of the line. It's here that he meets a young kid by the name of Joe, who's glad to see Brock. He thought he was going to be the last one in line, but now he doesn't have to share that shame by himself, as Brock is pretty well known at this point, as the girls that he noticed before are continuing to laugh at them. This is beginning to peeve Brock a little bit, and he wants to ask them what their problem is. But this boy Joe tells Brock to stop. That's Giselle. She's a second year, and she's the top of her class as well. Picking a fight with her isn't a good idea, because unless you're a grade ahead of her, you're most likely going to lose. Heck, even some of the grades ahead of her lose to her. That's why she has the role that she does as class president. However, Brock doesn't care about any of this. He just wants to show this girl who he is and shut her up. However, Joe proves to be the voice of reason here once again, telling Brock that there is a no fighting policy on the school grounds, and any illegal battling could get you expelled, so you want to make sure that the battle between you two is a sanctioned one at least. So why don't you just wait in line, and then you could worry about getting a sanctioned battle later. Reluctantly, Brock stands down for the time being, as he can even recognize that getting kicked out on your first day would be an even bigger embarrassment, considering the legacy that he's trying to honor, that of his mother's. An hour or so passes, and Brock and Joe find themselves at the front of the line, as they are the last two kids to be seen by the head of registration. While Joe's excited to finally be seen, Brock on the other hand is a bit on the opposite foot. You see, he didn't really eat anything this morning, and the whole disheveled looking thing, it's really starting to take a toll on him, as he hasn't had a good meal in a couple of days, considering he lost most of his supplies to that Squirtle. So he's just kind of slinking his way to the registration counter, a bit dazed and confused. This is another unfortunate turn of events for Brock, as there are some questions that he has to answer here, and the orientators are notorious for kicking kids out on the first day if they can't get these basic questions right. However, luckily for Brock, him being at the back of the line is actually a blessing in disguise, as the orientators are so fed up with dealing with these snot-nosed kids that don't know anything about Pokemon that they just want to end this day. So they're not really paying Brock's dazed and confused state any mind, as they just want to get him inside so that way they can get away from all of these kids and have some time to themselves. So after looking over the starter that Brock was barely able to produce, they stamp his trainer's card and welcome him to the Pokemon Institute. However, due to the lack of food, Brock is having trouble processing this whole event, as he just wants to find something to eat. Luckily for him, he's got his new friend Joe, who understands what Brock's mumbling and babbling has been about, as he knows exactly where the cafeteria is. Without any words, Joe just grabs Brock's arm and pulls him in a direction. Moments later, they find himself inside of a massive cafeteria where most of the students are currently, as they're trying to get to know their new peers. However, Brock simply ignores Joe and everyone else around at the smell of the basic cafeteria food that to him is a godsend. Without any hesitation, the young trainer bolts over to the counter and begins piling food onto a plate until it's about the same size as he is. And then he just makes his way to a random table and sits down and begins eating like a beast from the wild who has no manners or any type of decency at all. This abhors the people that are at the table with him, and they slowly begin to back away, as they don't really want to have anything to do with this kid, as he doesn't seem to be their type of people. However, Brock doesn't care. He's got food in front of his face, and he's going to devour every last bit of it before he does anything else today. Luckily, it doesn't take him very long, as the tray he had piled high is thoroughly cleaned, with Brock ready to start the actual day. The first thing he does after clearing his plate is turn to the person that's closest to him and challenge him to a Pokemon battle, to which this random student just simply backs away, put off by Brock's abrasiveness. This is where Joe chimes in again, telling Brock that it doesn't really work like that. Didn't he hear anything about what he said when it came to sanctioned battles? All battles on campus have to be authorized by an authoritative figure. If they're not, then you can get expelled. So don't just go off challenging random people the battles, or you could get in trouble. Then what's the point of being at the school if we're not going to have any Pokemon battles? Well, they have classes, Joe says. That way you can learn about Pokemon and typing, and learn what moves a certain Pokemon can learn. It helps you bond with your Pokemon that much quicker. That's why I came here, but I just barely got in, Joe says as he hangs his head. This actually catches Brock's attention as he asks why the change in tone, to which Joe informs Brock that he had to get in on good test scores considering his parents don't have a lot of money and he was unable to get any type of sponsorship from any meaningful gym leader or trainer in the region. So if he screws up, then he's out. That's why he knows all the rules. So Brock had better do the same. It's here that a smell begins to permeate the area that Brock is standing in, as everyone around him realizes that the smell is coming from Brock. He was lost in the woods for days, and he didn't really have time for any personal hygiene. This is where Tom tells Brock another rule. He's supposed to maintain personal hygiene and cleanliness at all times. So let's get him back to his room so that way Brock can get a shower and get changed. Joe then grabs Brock's arm, pointing him in the direction that he needs to go, while the only thing that Brock can think to himself is the school's just a huge bummer. Why would anyone want to come here? Especially considering there's all these rules and they can't have any Pokemon battles at random. An hour or so later, Brock is finally out of the shower after scrubbing good and deep to remove all of the scents from him, and he's gotten a new change of clothes so that way he doesn't offend anybody around him. It's at this point that Joe decides to be Brock's tour guide, showing him around the school. They walk through the main halls as Joe explains everything about the school. This kid really did take his time to learn everything, Brock thinks, as Joe just rambles on like an excited kid at a candy store. However, this quickly comes to a halt when something catches Brock's eye. It's a display of some kind in a case, a bunch of trophies, but there's a picture that Brock recognizes, something he hadn't given much thought of since he entered the grounds of the school. It's a picture of his mother when she was younger. Matter of fact, the whole display case is lined with pictures of her and trophies bearing her name. This is where Joe chimes in, telling Brock that she's one of the most famous trainers that this school has ever produced. She was one of the toughest battlers, and she was really known for her technique with water Pokemon. Man, I wish I could have seen it. This is where Brock chimes in that she really was a great battler. I got to see it every day. This comment piques Joe's curiosity as he asks Brock what he means by that statement, to which Brock elaborates, telling Joe that it's his mother and she died about a year ago. That's why he came to the school, because he wanted to make her proud. He wanted to live up to her legacy. Joe begins to say something when a very condescending laugh comes from behind the two. As they turn, they're met with that girl from before, Giselle. That woman was your mother? Oh, please. That's the biggest lie I've ever heard since I've been in this school. There's no way you're related to her, Giselle says, as she giggles at Brock with her trio of bimbos. Now, there are a lot of things that gets Brock upset, but usually he can maintain his cool. However, talking about his mom is the one thing that you don't want to do, as it's going to immediately send him into a boiling point as he begins to yell at the girl. She has no idea what she's talking about, and how dare she talk to him and mention his mother. Oh, I've seemed to hit a soft spot. Did Mommy really pass away? Well, I'm sorry, Giselle says. Unfortunately for you, she's not here to wipe away your tears. But maybe your dad could. I heard that you got a sponsorship from one of the gyms. What was his name again? Flint. That's right, Flint. The leader of the weakest gym in Kanto. While Brock isn't the biggest fan of his dad, there is one thing that he won't tolerate. Someone talking bad about his parents, whether it's his mom or his dad. The only one that has the right to talk bad about his dad is him, and he makes this known to Giselle as he pulls out a Pokeball, telling her that it's time for a battle. He's gonna shut her up once and for all. This is when one of Giselle's cronies stepped forward, asking Brock why he would have the audacity to try and challenge Giselle. She's a second year, and she's the class president. There's no way a first-year dog like him would be able to win a battle against her. The girls all then begin to giggle, but Brock says, well, if that's the case, then you wouldn't mind having a battle with me, considering I'll be a sure win for you. After all, what would it hurt to teach me another lesson after all the ones that you just gave me? This is where another one of the cronies steps up to berate Brock for him addressing Giselle like that. However, Giselle interrupts this, telling the girl to stop. She'll accept his challenge, so that way she can permanently show Brock where his place is, on the heel of her boot. But Tom quickly chimes in, telling Brock that this is a bad idea. It's after battling hours, and no one will authorize this battle. However, Giselle tells Brock not to worry. She can get it approved. After all, she is the class president. So they all head off to the battle arena, where there's still one official in attendance that's cleaning up for the night. This is where Giselle Giselle is shown to throw her weight around, as she is able to get this battle sanctioned, and the attendant reactivates the battlefield, allowing Brock and Giselle to both take their positions on opposite sides. Giselle tells Brock that this will be a one-on-one battle only, and the winner will be declared when one side's Pokemon are completely out. Any questions? I know how a Pokemon battle works, Brock says, so stop stalling and let's battle. As you wish, Giselle says. This is where Giselle reveals her starter Pokemon and the ace of her team, Cubone. This thing is small, Brock thinks to himself. I'll have such an easy time rolling this over. Roly-Coly, you're up! The rock type hits the field ready to burn some rubber as it stares down its opponent for its first official Pokemon battle. Oh, this is going to be quick, Giselle thinks to herself. However, she's polite, and she gives Brock the first move, which he gladly takes, ordering a Sandstorm, knowing that it's going to be able to protect Roly-Coly and hit this Cubone for some chip damage. However, Giselle just laughs, reminding Brock that her Cubone is a ground type, and Sandstorm has no effect on a ground type, just like it has no effect on his rock type. It's a shame you wasted that free move. Cubone, use focus energy. Brock looks deep into the Sandstorm, and he can see the eyes of the little skull-cladded Pokemon glow before fading back into the Sandstorm. This is where Brock tells Roly-Coly to use a Rapid Spin. Let's mow down that Pipsqueak and shut this girl up. For once, Roly-Coly and Brock are on the same page as it begins to spin its wheel, barreling in the direction that the eyes were. However, this is just met with a laugh from Giselle, as she tells Cubone it's time to finish this. Use Boomerang. Utilizing the Sandstorm as cover, Cubone begins to fade in and out of sight as it throws its club, smacking Roly-Coly one by one until the rock type is left beaten, battered, and bruised in the middle of the battlefield as the Sandstorm fades, revealing that Brock's Pokemon has lost. The only thing he can do is stand there in stunned silence as Giselle tells Cubone it's time to go. They have an appointment to keep, and it looks like she's going to have to take a rain check on Brock putting her in her place. And this, my friends, is where we're going to leave our story for now. So tell me, how did you feel about part 2 of Brock taking the gym challenge? Do you feel like this story is heading in a compelling direction, considering Brock is at the Pokemon Institute instead of actually challenging the gyms? How do you feel about Brock's established rival so far, Giselle? And what about Brock's loss to her that was so one-sided? How do you think he's going to react? Let me know in the comments down below. And that's all we had for today's video. I really appreciate you guys stopping by to watch all the way to the end, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. If you guys really enjoy my content, consider following me on some of my other platforms like Discord, where you can get to know other people who are interested in what ifs, or on Twitter, where I post sometimes behind the scenes updates. Or if you want to help the channel grow a little bit extra, why don't you consider donating like the people right here have, as whatever you could offer could help us get to a larger audience by helping us get new videos done, or some of the projects that we've been working. Custom art is getting kind of expensive, so we want to make sure that we have the funds to do that. But with all that being said, I really hope you guys enjoyed everything, and I will see you in the next video.